to the Webster Dictionary, the definition of democracy is a government in which the supreme power is vested in the people and exercised by them directly or indirectly through a system of representation, usually involving periodically held free elections. In relation to democracy comes capitalism. Capitalism is a way of organizing an economy so that the things that are used to make and transport products, such as land, oil, factories, ships, etc., are owned by individual people and companies rather than the government. 19th century was a time when democracy began to develop in Europe. In this video, we'll explain how democracy and capitalism grew and evolved in the United Kingdom, Germany, France, and Greece.
In 1789, the French Revolution exploded, and with it, a wave of liberal revolution in Europe and France put an end to the monarchy, and giving rise to the First Republic for 10 years, until the coup of state of Napoleon in 1799 that eventually became the First French Empire. With its ideology of establishing a free and expanding across Europe, France invaded Spain, Switzerland, and part of the Germanic empires, in which abolished the old regime and installed his relatives as status, made reforms that gave individual guarantees, such as the civil code. These changes in French Empire caused that Austria, Russia, Prussia, and England formed an alliance to defeat Napoleon and succeed. This character liberal ideas planted in countries that he occupied. In 1815, a treaty in Vienna led by Metternich, the monarchies were restored, and with this, Louis XVIII was proclaimed King of France. The period was marked by a constitutional monarchy of moderate rule, followed by a return of pro-monarchy people during the reign of Louis' brother Charles X. Reactionary policies revived the opposition, liberals and modernists, and led to the July Revolution. In December of 1848, Louis Napoleon, nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte, was elected president of the Second Republic. Louis surprised the country when he declared himself Napoleon III. In specific terms, France was a symbol of success in many areas. During Napoleon III's reign, the economy could due to high demand for French goods. A new banking system put France's financial house in order, and massive program of public works turned to Paris into the envy of the entire world. In foreign policy, Napoleon III had some success and some horrible failures. As a victor of the Crimean War and a key supporter of Italian unification. In 1861, Napoleon III sent a military force to that nation to pacify the Mexican countryside, setting up Austrian Archduke Maximilian as Emperor of Mexico. France, as Mexico's larger creditor, has the support of Mexico's conservative elite, who opposed the liberal policies of the previous president in Mexico City. However, Maximilian suffered from a serious lack of popular support in Mexico once Napoleon III withdrew his troops to fight in Europe. Maximilian fell to popular uprising and was executed in the summer of 1867. French prestige was damaged, and public criticisms tended to bring down Napoleon III's regime. The proximate cause of the demise of the Second Empire was France's defeat at the hands of Prussia in the Franco-Prussian War. After Prussia occupied Paris, Napoleon III fled, and Prussia set up an unstable republican government based on universal manhood suffrage and multi-party parliamentarism. Almost at the end of the 19th century, in France begins a beautiful era that was a period that it conventionally dated as starting in 1871 and ended when the World War I began in 1913. Occurring during the era of the French Third Republic beginning in 1817, it was a period characterized by optimism, peace at home and in Europe, new technology, and scientific discoveries.
Since the 15th century, almost all the Greek territory was in power of the Ottoman Empire. But in the late 18th and the beginning of the 19th century, new nationalist Greek movements began to arise, having by purpose the complete independence from the Turks and to retrieve the ancient glory of the classic ages. The several communities of Greek people in European country, the remarkable past of the nation and the advantages of an ally in that region, as well as possible new trade possibilities, England, France, and Russia, the great powers, fully supported the independence movement. Inspired by the recent French Revolution and the partially successful independence of Albania, a secret society called Filiki Eteira started rebellions in Greek territory in 1821. The weakened Ottoman Empire, facing internal conflicts and a war against Persia, was unable to properly react in time, and several cities were under the Greek control in every little time. In 1822, the Epidauro Assembly declared independence, with purpose of having a democratic constitution and to develop individual rights. Among the leaders, an English poet of liberal ideas was very notable. He was Lord Byron, and although he died only some months after joining the war, is nowadays considered a national hero in Greece. However, the conflicts among the leaders of the Hellenic state and the delayed reaction of the Turks, with the help of the Egyptians, eventually arrived. In 1826, they started the reconquer of the lost territory, and almost succeeded. The only reason they failed was because the Treaty of London of 1827, France, Russia, and England approved a military intervention in Greece. With the Treaty of Adrianople of 1829, Ottomans finally recognized the full autonomy of Greece. The independence was achieved, and the Greek National Assembly named the first head of state, Ioannis Kapodistrias. Eventually, he was assassinated, and Russia, France, and England decided to name a king for the new country, Otto I of Greece, native of Bavaria. This was the beginning of the Greek monarchy, where almost none progressed in the liberal ideas that were originally searched. A constitution was approved in 1843, but that didn't prevent the authoritarian ruling. The king was exiled in 1862 for other to take his place, George I of Greece, a Danish prince, with less authoritarian ideas. Eventually, the dynasty continued from there until 1973. Political instability was common, and the debts prevent the economy from growing, until a relative period of stability with the Prime Minister Charilaos Trikoupis in 1877, when the country's infrastructure had some development. Even though the corruption under his government ascended, as well as the already high taxes. This finally provoked the declaration of public insolvency in 1893. At the end of the century, the Greeks had achieved their independence. However, the control of the great power prevented further development of democracy and economy. In the last decade, a parliamentary monarchy was in place, albeit the level of corruption was considerable, and some sectors of the production were functioning, but the war debts were still being paid. In the end, Greece was still a poor country.
Now we are going to talk about England. In the mid-19th century, Britain was not a democracy, and the majority of politicians did not support democratic values. The evolution from monarchy to representative democracy was a long process that started in Western Europe and the United States. This evolution contained three critical achievements: representation, empowerment, and suffrage. The development of political representation, the representatives from each region of a country came together and formed a representative assembly. Empowerment was realized when the representative assembly reached real political power. This originally occurred in England, where England's representative assembly, the parliament, progressively gained power from the English monarch. The power to vote was restricted to a wealthy elite. Only with the expansion of suffrage was representative government. The development of the capitalism was a European movement. We can say that the founder of the capitalism was the Scotch philosopher Adam Smith. He was the first to describe the principal aspects of the economy that defines the capitalism. A key element for the capitalism is the beginning of an activity in order to obtain benefits in the future. According to Adam Smith, human beings have always wanted to change. After the Industrial Revolution in England, there was a lot of changes, originally in productive aspects and social organization, due to the replacement of the hand labor to the use of machines. By this time, the working class granted rights. The capitalism in England was developed between 1848 and 1875 during the Victorian era. One of its main characteristics was the creation of the industry. Based on this, we can find two important aspects in the capitalism: the capitalists or the factories owners and the workers or the proletariat, and these both developed the market and increased the consumption in the country. During this time, it was established the English two-party system with the creation of the Conservative Party and the Liberal Party with the intention of democratizing the English political system. In consequence of this, there was a electoral reform on 1867, which defended the right to vote to the people who owned just one land or rented it, but the control of the legislative power was from the bourgeoisie because they had the power of trade and finance.
After the German unification led by Otto von Bismarck in the 1800s, Germany was in need of new policies. The government and the commercial aspects needed to be organized. After the defeat of Napoleon, the German Confederation, or Bundestag, was created with the purpose of conceiving a new constitutional structure for Germany. It allowed independent delegations to join without losing their sovereignty. The Confederation later collapsed due to the tension between Austria and Prussia, wars, revolutions, and the lack of compromise of some nations. Afterwards, the Austro-Prussian War took place. Prussia won and gained control of the German lands. The North German Confederation, the Reichstag, was created by Prussia. It excluded Austria and the southern German states. Then Prussia went into war with France, which resulted in the birth of the German Empire, or the Kaiserreich. All of the former members of the German Confederation were included, except Austria and some others. New ideologies started appearing in the map. Liberalism and Romanticism caused German people to get revolutionary ideas and were influenced by the French. This led to thinkers and intellectuals sharing and executing democratic and nationalist theories. The impact of these ideologies on German government and lifestyle was called the Wehrmacht. To improve the status of the Confederation, the Zollverein was conceived. This was an establishment of custom unions. It existed to manage tariffs and economic policies in the respective region, used to expand and promote industrialism, commerce, and trade. The Zollverein was one of the most important movements concerning German capitalism. It provided the delegation with commercial treaties and relations and brought economical benefits. There was a revolution in 1845, and the King of Prussia, Friedrich Wilhelm IV, promised the enraged people a constitution and a parliament. At the end, all he did was to hand all the power to the king and the upper classes. In the end, after many years, Germany got its independence. Today, it is called the German Democratic Republic. It was not until after World War II that Germany gained its actual complete independence and democratic rule.